What do you think of when you hear the word entrepreneur? Or maybe startups or daring founders in their garages? But the entrepreneurial mindset, it goes far beyond just launching a company on a seed of an idea. It's a way of thinking that's rooted in history. Yet it's more relevant today than ever. It's shaping how we see opportunities, how we solve problems, and we create impact across pretty much every sector. And to understand why this mindset really matters and how to develop it, we're going to take a look at its roots in history, the traits that define entrepreneurial thinkers, and the way it can influence both personal growth and organizational success. And today, that's especially important with the growth of AI. I've spoken about this before, but I just felt I needed to go a little further. So stay tuned. Power of After is for you at mid-career, halftime of life, helping you maximize your skills, resources, and experience. We have courses, products, and help to make this stage of your life your best and most purposeful ever. Don't miss a single article, free download, or podcast. Get all the latest at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. When people hear the word entrepreneur, well, they often picture a startup founder, maybe in Silicon Valley, or a risk taker launching a business, just in their garage with almost nothing. And I listen often to the podcast, How I Built This. I love hearing the stories and the success and some of the failures too. But the entrepreneurial mindset, it really is much bigger than just founding a company, because it's a way of thinking and it's a posture toward life and opportunity that has deep historical roots and modern day applications really across every sector. And I've shared before that when I was going through school and even graduate school, well, I never even heard the word entrepreneur. It wasn't a part of the educational focus at that time. But wow, have times ever changed? So to understand why the entrepreneurial mindset matters and how to cultivate it, well, I just kind of wanted to go back into history a little bit of entrepreneurship and then examine the traits that set up entrepreneurial thinkers and how it set them apart. And then finally looked at how this mindset can shape the future for individuals and organizations alike. And I felt I needed to know this even a little bit more for my personal growth. So let's talk about the origins of entrepreneurship. Well, the term entrepreneur, it comes from the French verb entreprendre, however that is pronounced, meaning to undertake. So it first appeared in the 18th century, most notably in the writings of Irish-French economist Richard Cantillon. And he was in the 1680s to 1734. And he described entrepreneurs as risk takers, individuals who buy at a certain price, and then they sell at really an uncertain one, assuming the risk of the enterprise. So right away, there is that risk. Now, in the early 1800s, French economist Jean-Baptiste Say, he was from 1767 to 1832, he expanded the concept, defining the entrepreneur as someone who not only bears the risk, but also brings together the factors of production, land, labor, and capital to create value. And now he emphasized the entrepreneur as a catalyst of economic progress and competition and free trade. And then by the 20th century, Joseph Schultz, he was 1883 to 1950. He gave entrepreneurship its modern frame in economic theory. And he called entrepreneurs the agents of creative disruption, those who disrupt markets by introducing innovations that make old products or processes obsolete. And his vision, it placed entrepreneurship at the heart of capitalism's dynamic growth. Wow. Okay, so that's a little of the history. I'm glad you stayed with me because we're going to get into now how it gets into mainstream culture. And so much of the 19th and early 20th centuries, the word entrepreneur, well, it was used mainly in academic and economic concepts. And business people were often referred to simply as just merchants or industrialists or inventors. But after World War II, as venture capital and technical innovation grew, the term it gained traction in the United States. And by the 1980s and 90s, it was fueled by these stories of like Steve Jobs with Apple Computers, Bill Gates with Microsoft, and Jeff Bezos with Amazon. And so now it became more inspirational and mainstream. And today, of course, the entrepreneurial mindset, it's celebrated far beyond the world of startups. It's a value characteristic for nonprofits, education, government, and even large corporations where entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, they drive innovation from within. So here's what is the entrepreneurial mindset? I've talked about this before. And at its core, the entrepreneurial mindset is less about just owning a business and more about how you think and how you act in the face of opportunity, risk, and uncertainty. And it's all about recognizing possibilities and being willing to experiment and persisting through challenges. Now, some of the key dimensions include opportunity seeking. Well, entrepreneurs, they're trained to see problems as openings rather than obstacles. And that's a hard mindset. Where others see just roadblocks, entrepreneurial thinkers, they ask, well, how can this be solved a little bit differently? Well, it's truly a mindset to be adapted. It's not easy. And I've said often when a door is shut, well, look for the window. And when the window's shut, well, look for the crack in the wall. That's an entrepreneurial mindset. Resilience and adaptability. Now, setbacks, they are inevitable. The entrepreneurial mindset that treats them not as just failures, but as feedback, information to refine the next attempt. And books with topics like Failing Fast, there's a lot of books with that title, by the way. Go ahead and look it up. They emphasize the value of how losing and failing often it brings the best lessons to move ahead. So risk-taking with calculated judgment is what entrepreneurs, they do. They're not reckless. They calculate their risks and they weigh potential losses against long-term gains. And they're often willing to move forward despite uncertainty. And this takes stepping back and looking really honestly at the data. That's hard to do. And the market. What is it really telling you? I have to do this constantly. And what about value creation? Oh, I love this one. The focus is not just on making money, but on creating value, whether it's through a product, a service, or a new way of solving a problem. So what problems are you really solving? And what pain are you alleviating? We talk about this often, especially in marketing. And these are really good questions to ask often and consistently. Continuous learning, a really good one. The entrepreneurial mindset, it thrives on curiosity. Now, lifelong learners, entrepreneurs, they're quick to adapt to new technologies, market shifts, and cultural changes. And this is a proactive field. So why does this matter? Especially, why does it matter now in this new technological age? Well, in today's rapidly shifting economy, the entrepreneurial mindset, it's no longer optional. It's essential for any type of business. And here's why. Workforce shifts. Well, many careers that once promised like a stability, they're just disappearing. Or they're changing under the weight of automation, especially those entry-level jobs. And AI is changing a lot of that. And entrepreneurial thinkers now can pivot and they can reskill more effectively, especially with that mindset of lifelong learning. Mid-career reinvention. I love this. I talk about this so much. For those at halftime of life, the entrepreneurial mindset, it enables reinvention, leveraging existing skills, existing resources to create meaningful new chapters and really your ideal lifestyle at this stage of life. And this takes creativity and taking the time to evaluate your skills and your competencies. Global challenges, well, issues like healthcare, education, well, they really require this entrepreneurial approach, innovative, resourceful, and cross-disciplinary. And the trades will continue to hold huge opportunity for those who are willing to learn a skill and willing to work, no matter what age and no matter what level. So technology's acceleration, as Schultz, he suggested, one of our historical resources here, creative destruction is constant. And only those who adapt this disruption will really survive through this. So cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset. So how do you develop this mindset if you weren't really born with it? Well, some personality traits, such as risk tolerance, they may be innate. Most entrepreneurial skills, well, they can be learned and practiced. So here's I'm going to give you a couple steps here. Shift your perspective on problems. Reframe your problems as just puzzles. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me with that victim mindset, ask, what opportunity does this really reveal? Find that little crack in the wall. Practice experimentation. Oh, this is so fun. Entrepreneurs, they often work in lean cycles. They build fast, they learn, and then they iterate. And the habit of experimentation, it can be applied really in any field, whether you're testing a marketing campaign or a teaching method or even a side hustle. Invest in networks. Relationships are so important. Entrepreneurship, it thrives on collaboration. So build those diverse connections, those mentors, those peers, and cross-industry contacts. And networks, they provide ideas, they provide feedback and opportunities. Don't discount those. And embrace lifelong learning. Well, read widely and take those online courses and listen to podcasts. I listen to so many podcasts. There's a wealth of information, and much of this is just so readily available. And stay curious about all those technologies, even if they're not even related to your field and they just don't make sense. This mindset is just really important. And then just develop some resilience. Resilience isn't just mental toughness. It's also built by heavy, healthy routines, habits, reflection, mindfulness. Take time to journal. Take time to exercise. Just do things for you. So here's some real world examples. You've heard of these. Sarah Blakely with Spanx. I mean, she started with $6,000. No, $5,000, even less in savings and no background in fashion. But she used resourcefulness and persistence to build a billion-dollar company. She was solving a problem really for her. And Howard Schultz with Starbucks, and he's transformed that little small coffee company into this global brand by reimagining coffee shops as a community space. And things are still changing there, as we know. Elon Musk, Tesla and SpaceX, we've all heard that. He's an audacious risk taker. And he just has this entrepreneurial drive to innovate against the odds. And he definitely has the setbacks. So local entrepreneurs everywhere, from restaurant owners as they pivoted during the pandemic to teachers launching online courses. And this mindset, it shows up in ordinary people finding extraordinary solutions. And you can do this too in your own little way. So the entrepreneurial mindset beyond business. Now, one of the most powerful applications of entrepreneurial thinking is outside traditional business ventures. So what about in education? Teachers applying that entrepreneurial method, well, they can change their sort of engaging, they can actually start engaging problem-based learning experiences. And we can see this, especially in charter schools and the explosive popularity of homeschooling. I have seen this. It's amazing. I love education done in this way. In healthcare, doctors and nurses, they're developing patient-centered innovations and often working around bureaucratic obstacles. And I think we're going to see more and more like a concierge health service. You've probably already seen them. You're thinking, who's paying for that? There are people paying for that. They want beyond that basic coverage that they're getting. And I think that's going to be more and more popular. And in personal lives, well, individuals reinvent themselves after retirement, divorce, career shifts. There's a lot of changes that happen. And using that entrepreneurial mindset and the tools to craft meaningful next chapter of life. And I've written about this in my books, Women at Halftime, especially my most recent, This Power of After. That's what our podcast and our show now is called. So assess your risk comfort zone. Let's apply this. Identify where you're maybe just too cautious and where you might benefit from a bold step. Take some time to do this. Don't be afraid of it. And now just kind of revisit some of your past experiences, your skills from maybe your unrelated field to each other. Again, I've talked about this in my book. It's very, very important to do this and start small. What holds people back many times is starting. You've got to be willing to start and anchor everything in purpose. Now, entrepreneurship, it's not just about chasing all of these opportunities, but it's aligning those ventures with personal values and your goals. And so consistently spend time reviewing your core values. I've worked this quite through a whole section in the appendix of my book, Stop Circling, talking about those core values, very important. So the entrepreneurial mindset, it's traveled a long road from that 18th century economic theory now to the 21st century cultural icon. It's a different way of thinking. It's not only just for those little startups in the garages, but they're really for any business, anyone and anywhere. It's just that mindset of learning, of growing, of iterating, finding a new way of doing something. And to be entrepreneurial is not only to just to start that company, it's to take ownership of your own future. It's fun. You don't have to be some sort of huge creative. You can be entrepreneurial and finding a different way of working something that will make sense. It could be in education. It could be in healthcare. It could be in almost anything. So take the time to do that. I hope this has given you a little bit of that background that I did not have in my college education, my school education. But I think more and more people are now very, very familiar with that word and with that sort of system, the entrepreneurial system. And with this is also an article. Make sure you get our newsletter because then you will get this article, or just click on goalsforyourlife.com. You will see all of my articles. And there's an article with this particular show, Power of After Show. And my goal is for those of you who are at that mid-career, you're facing changes. What are you going to do next? You might have gone through a big life change. Many people have gone through a lot of different changes, whether their kids are growing or they've gone through a relationship change or job change, or the halftime of life. It could be after 40, after 45. There's a lot of changes that happen. So pay attention to those. Listen to these shows. It's specifically for you. So I hope you've enjoyed today. This is Deborah Johnson. I love doing what I do. And I hope you've gained a little bit of that, not only head knowledge of this, but the heart knowledge of what it really takes to be an entrepreneur. And you own that a little bit for you, because I want you to be successful. I want you to have just a great, wonderful chapter of your life. So I'll look forward to being with you again next time. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I love bringing you insights to help you maximize your skills, resources, and experience at mid-career and beyond, so that you can make your next chapter your most impactful and purposeful yet. I'm Deborah Johnson, and I can't wait to be with you again next time on the Power of After Show.